So, Kieran, can you remember when you met Padraig?
I met Padraig, I'm trying to think when I met him first. I think it was in Edmonton. I met him first. Actually, we're having a few drinks.
Around what year would that have been?
And that's another problem now too, isn't it? Could be in what? Before I met you, Helen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it would have
it'd be
late
1960, 71, maybe 72.
71,
I was after coming off the Dempster Highway from, it was built from Inuvik to Dawson City.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him in the hotel in Edmonton. I think it was memory. The Cecil Hotel, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And was it a crowd of lads or was he on his own?
There was quite a bunch of them. There was a lot of miners from the gold mines, from Echo Bay gold mines.
Right.
They used to fly in the gold and they had their own plane, the 737, and you couldn't get off the plane until the gold was unloaded off the plane first. And
Right.
all the Brinks trucks and all the police would go. And then everybody was unloaded and the Brink trucks were gone. Like,
And
you could sit there like you want to get off the damn plane, you couldn't get off it until the gold was gone first. Like,
Where's Echo Bay?
Echo Bay is up in the Northwest Territories. It's right across, they used to haul the fuel in over Great Slave Lake in the winter time when the lake would freeze over. You know, the ice truck. You know, the ice
You'd make the ice roads.
Yeah, the ice road.
Yeah.
And they'd haul the fuel in all winter and then they'd work the whole season.
And can you tell me?
He worked in there, he worked then in northern Ontario. He worked in Adacoken. At Adacoken there was mines there too. And then old Paddy Burns and him were big buddies, eh? And old Paddy was a warrior, like he got kicked off the Metropolitan Police. And Paddy was a guy, he was very fine triggered, like some of the guys, like, you know, the non-union. Paddy was very union. And
Where was Paddy from?
Paddy was from Castledermot, County Kildare.
Right.
He was the guy that, him and Lugs Brannigan straightened out all the Teddy boys in Dublin years ago. He's a Golden Glove champion, Paddy was. And he worked in Mountjoy Jail. But Padraig had always, like Paddy, the bunch of them Italians and the Portuguese, and they go scabbing like a kind of more or less. You know, they were anti-union and they'd be doing work, you know, they're doing the tunnel work and they go in and do work that they weren't supposed to be doing, like, but Paddy didn't agree with this. And of course Paddy had, he'd knocked them out, like, there'd be blood all over the place. And Padraig used to always call him the Amadon. Goddamn Amadon, like, you know. He wouldn't say, like, he'd hit first and ask questions later, like, you know. But Padraig always christened him the Amadon, like, you know. And Paddy would be laughing, like, he couldn't care less, like. And his brother was the chief of police in Toronto. Paddy was kicked off the police force in Toronto. For being judge, jury and executioner and the whole lot, like he was a vigilante.
Prosecutor, yeah.
You know,
Executioner.
he was the whole lot, like.
Yeah.
And Kieran, can I take you back to that plane with the gold was on it? Would Padraig come into Edmonton on that plane?
On the plane, yeah.
Oh, tell us more about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Padraig working in the gold mines?
He was too, yeah. And he worked all over, actually.
Where were the gold mines located?
It was up in the Northwest Territories. It'd be north, one side of Uranium City, actually.
Right. So Padraig would fly in on that plane?
What year did Padraig go out to Canada?
I've no idea.
Yeah.
You went out in '69, didn't you?
Yeah, I think he was there before me, like.
What,
Oh, God,
Padraig was
yeah.
born in 1947.
47, yeah.
And I think he would have been about 20 when he went to Canada.
Yeah, he was.
So that would have been about 1967.
Oh,
It was 2 years before.
So he was out 2 years before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he
Right.
was too, yeah.
So 19... That
'Cause
was...
he worked in Jedway and he worked in Tassoo.
And where's that, Jedway?
It's on the main line. There were two big mines. They were doing exploration tunnel. He worked with the Melly brothers too for a short while. The Melly brothers were from Donegal, and they were noticed as the best hard rock miners in the world. They used to figure like. And the tunnels, the exploration tunnels they drove was unbelievable. They done tunnels all the way from Mexico to the Arctic Circle, like the Mellys. And they all died young with heart trouble. I don't know if there's any of them left. There was 7 brothers.
Wow.
It's funny you should say that because Padraig sometimes called himself the hard rock miner.
Yeah, well, they were all, yeah, oh yeah.
He used to say, I was the hard rock miner.
He was
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
They were unreal, them guys, eh?
So what kind of work would Padraig have been doing with them?
He was drilling, he was running the big old jack legs, and that sorted out the men from the boys usually, eh?
What's a jackleg?
It's a big old drill, like it sets on a big tripod, like.
Yes. So Padraig would have worked this
Oh yeah, big time.
in the mine.
And loading and dynamite. He was with the dynamite crews also, eh? Loading the holes and that, like. Blasting, yeah.
Oh right, so he did because when he came back to Ireland, he did do that type of work. He did do blasting in the mines in Navan,
he
and he
did,
did
yeah.
blasting in down in the mines in Evoke as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
So that's where he learned how to
He
use
did
dynamite.
too, and he was very efficient actually. Like there was never any accidents or nothing with him, like because I remember the old Amadon telling me stories about him, like.
Yes.
And I think he worked on the Spadine Avenue job, the subway tunnels for a little bit.
Where's the Spadine Avenue?
It'd be in Toronto, the subway tunnels for the
So Padraig would have
underground.
worked on the building
Yeah.
of the underground tunnels in Toronto
in Toronto.
with
Yeah.
with the hard rock miners from Donegal. With the
No, they were into a different.
They were-
This
they were-
was tunnel work because that's why him and Paddy Burns.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Paddy worked the subways with McAlpines. He worked with McAlpines too. Padraig did.
Oh Padraig worked.
And they'd be down there, and there were some areas that worked in like, and the ground was very unstable, like, and they had to work. They were working under pressure, like, because otherwise the water would come in and drown them in it, like.
So the tunnels, just making the tunnels, was it?
Yeah, they do so many rings a day, like, you know. They do a ring, and they made a deal. Like, see, that's the time when the big massacre that time, and I don't know if Padraig was in on that too. But O'Shea and Paddy Burns and all them Irish guys, and they were all hurling at the time. But Padraig wasn't the guy to get involved in all that violence. The other guys they were professional at that, like, you know.
So he kept his distance from.
He wasn't
No.
into
That's
that,
why
like,
he
you know.
called them Ramadan.
He'd be trying to straighten them out and trying to get them to back off, like. But,
Oh, the cops are calling. What was the massacre?
well, you see, it was right across the paper in Toronto, and you see, the guys were doing so much work, like doing so many rings per shift,
Yes.
and McAlpine wasn't paying them. Like, you know, they were working hard. They were just unbelievable the hard work they done. Eh? So the boys figured, well, it's time to have a wobble, shut the job down, and we make a deal and get more money. But the boys told McAlpine's top guys, this is it, you guys will have to make a deal with us here. We'll work so many rings, 2 rings a shift, like, or 1 shift. Like, they finished the ring, they could go home, like, you know.
Oh, so much money, yeah.
It's like the pipe welders on the pipelines. They'll weld so many joints, and that's it. They go home at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock or whatever. But apparently they made the deal, and they told them, you know, there's no work until we make a deal, like. Meanwhile, the next day, all the Italians and the Portuguese, they all went back into the tunnels, and there they are working. So some of the boys phoned up Paddy and all the gang, and they went down with baseball bats and 2x4s, and they're writing across the top of the paper, the Toronto paper, the next morning, Spadine Avenue Massacre. They were hauling them out on stretchers and pallet boards and stuff. The Italians with broken arms and broken legs, they're just unbelievable. And them guys were all hurling. They were hurling and football and all that at the time. A whole bunch of paddies, like.
And did you kill any of them? Or just...
They were hurt pretty bad. A lot of them were in hospital for quite a while, like. But there was they massacred a bunch of them, like there was. And you
If
see,
you
Paddy's brother.
googled it, would it come up on.
I don't think so, no. That's going
It
back.
might on the newspapers. If
Yes,
they
we
have
could
it.
Google it. So Padraig was working for McAlpine at that time, you're saying?
At that time, I'm pretty sure it was that time. I'm not exactly sure.
But he wouldn't have taken part in it.
He wouldn't take part in it at all, no.
That wasn't
he
his
let the
scene.
other guys, like, but there was lots of the other guys. And then you had Eddie Thorne, and then from Castle Pollard. Do you remember Eddie Thorne? And he was with the union that time, the Labourers Union. You had all the different unions there, like. But it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
But you see, old Paddy's brother was one of the chief of police in Toronto, and Paddy got talking to them guys and said, "Well, give us a head start here, like." From the alarm goes off, and the unions had buses at every exit at the tunnels. You can come up at different exits. There was big elevators, and the unions had paid for buses at all the exits. And you talk about a quick getaway, like it was very fast and efficient, like. The whole thing was very well organised, and all the guys got out, and then the ambulances moved in after the buses leaving, like, and they were loading them on.
And nobody charged.
There was nobody charged. They couldn't pinpoint. A lot of the guys knew them and that, but
And did McAlpine then end up having to pay
they
more?
did pay them, and the boys were getting home at 3 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Sometimes they'd finish up the whole shift. They'd be gone home at 2 o'clock. Drinking in the bar, the whole gang in the night.
That's amazing.
And then they had to go into on the way up, they say, they had to go into a decompression chamber, like. You know, you get the bends, like, you know, when you dive and you come up too fast. You know.
So Padraig would have undergone that process as well.
Well,
going in.
he was more experienced than a lot of them guys. A lot of them were greenhorns, like, compared to him and,
Right.
you know, with the underground stuff and that.
And just to bring it back to he worked a jackleg, is that right?
He did, yeah.
Yes.
That was the hard rock mine, and that was the tough stuff, like.
Yeah.
And ear operated jack.
Yeah, ear operated, yeah.
And would he be like, so you'd have to be fierce strong, you'd need huge upper body strength.
Yeah, unreal, like, to drive them all. They were.
And
It sorted out the men from the boys, that did.
right. And
But they were in great shape, all them miners, like.
and would you have been drilling, like, where would the drill, would you have been drilling down into the ground, or would you have been drilling up into a wall, a face wall, or forward?
Mostly forward. Like.
Mostly
'Cause I remember
forward.
him explaining in the hotel, like, their, you know, the procedures, like, in the different drifts and what they were doing, like. But they'd start in the centre, like, and it was all, like, milliseconds. The whole blast, like, this, they blow the centre out first and relieve the pressure, like. The centre hole would blow first, like, with the dynamite, and it's all milliseconds, and it went like a spiral all the way
So when
around.
they drilled the holes, did they pack it with
Loaded
the dynamite?
with dynamite, yeah.
Yeah. It was like
And
Ontario.
they'd done it like when there wasn't electronic fancy stuff you have today, you know. And I remember that one old miner there, he said, like, you know, there was a bunch of them and they were noted, like, as the elite. Like, never accidents or guys drilling into a bootleg hole, like, that was a big thing. Like, I seen a guy, like, where they picked them up and,
What do you mean by that?
Explosive in it.
Oh.
Yeah.
you know, after Padraig
The wall.
loading the holes and wiring them up and all that stuff, there was never a bootleg after him, like, you know.
And what do you mean by not a bootleg after him?
Well, they called it a bootleg hole. There was dynamite in it that didn't go off.
Oh, right.
There'd be a missed hole, and the next thing you'd start drilling again, like,
It'd blow the drill back
and
out.
it'd blow them to pieces, like, you know.
So he was such an expert.
He was,
He
oh,
was
definitely.
an absolute expert at.
Well, he was so conscientious type, like.
Yes.
He was very conscientious when it come to all that stuff, like.
That's work.
He wouldn't leave a stone unturned, like, as regards safety and nobody get hurt. And
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And where would he have learned that? He just learned on the job, did he?
he learned on the job. You know,
He's a
that
very
was it.
intelligent man.
He was, yeah. Like, you showed him once and that was it, like. You know, the guy.
He understood you.
Yeah, he did. Like, he didn't have to write it down for him at all.
Yeah.
So then in the evening time he'd take to the bar.
Yeah, we had some great old laughs and stuff. Eh?
Really?
Oh yeah.
What can you remember?
Oh God.
Don't tell.
Oh no, we have to hear some funny Padraig
About
stories.
those things we shall not speak.
Ah, come on, come on,
No.
come on, you have to tell us some of the things he got up to.
Padraig wants to know. Eh?
Paddy.
Or Paddy.
No, it was quite good old.
So when Paddy has a runaway, you see, and Mum starts on him, Paddy can say, well, Dad done it too. Hey?
He was good at the recitations and things, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was him and a man from Galway, the two of them, and they were good friends actually. And they were both good at it, like, you know.
Do you know his name? Or is he around? Or
Go on and on.
Gosh, there's so many. My old memory is gone.
I
Like.
know.
When you'd be having a few drinks, when you'd have a few drinks, then he'd start. His favourite poet was a Canadian poet, Robert Service. Well, actually, Robert Service was born in Scotland and he went to work at the mines in Canada.
Yeah.
And he wrote several volumes, and Padraig, knew numerous poems written
He
by
did,
him
yeah.
off by heart. And his party pieces were the cremation of Sam McGee and
Yeah,
Dangerous
and
Dan.
men that don't fit in, he knew them all, like.
Yeah.
I got a brother who's the same, like, and I don't know how he can remember it, and the drunker he get, the better he get at it, like. Yeah. But the old Yukon, you see, he was in Keno Hill for a little while too, actually. Yeah,
Keno Hill.
yeah,
Right.
Keno Hill.
Whereabouts is that?
And Clinton Creek. He was Clinton Creek and Keno Hill for a while, and there was another guy there. I'm trying to think of his name. Around Whitehorse. Did he ever mention Whitehorse?
Yes, he talked all the time about Whitehorse.
Whitehorse,
and
yeah.
the trail, the Dawson Trail.
The Dawson, yeah.
That's from
exactly.
Whitehall, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he
yeah.
used to talk about the stampede.
Yeah, and the rendezvous.
What was the rendezvous?
The rendezvous in Whitehorse was all them guys had. It's a big, the dogs and the sleighs and all that bloody
The
stuff.
sleds.
In the winter time.
And there used to be a competition for who'd grow the best beard, like.
Oh, right.
You see them guys with big old beards on them down to here, like.
And I think Padraig had a beard at that time. He did tell me that
He did, yeah. But there was some other guys that had beards on them there. We got thrown in jail that time, actually. They had
Why?
they had a big cage. They used to tow it up and down the streets, like.
Who would tow it? The dogs or the...
Yeah, because we didn't have a good enough beards, like.
Oh, and then throw you in the cage.
Yeah, and they had the
Oh.
Keystone Cops, they used to call them. They were like bobbies, like the British,
Yeah.
But we all got dumped into it, and there was Madigan, a guy from Dublin there too. And we were all in the cage, but we had a bottle of beer with us going down the street. Like.
And was Padraig
Everybody firing snowballs at us and everything, and we'd give them the finger out through the
Oh,
bar.
the Huskies pulling them.
And yeah.
and was Padraig in the cage with you?
He was in the cage with us.
I don't believe
A whole
you.
lot of us, oh yeah.
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 Because your beard wasn't
And
on
we didn't
enough.
give a shit, like we were just going for the ride, like, you know.
And
But
what,
great old crack, like.
what happened then? You ended up in
And
jail.
they'd let us go then, like, at the other end of town. We'd walk all the way back to the bar, like.
Oh,
Oh,
you
right.
poor things. eh?
Yeah.
So that was some sport. I remember him telling me he was at a wedding. Did you know Curly Wallace?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I think Curly has passed away, but I remember there was a wedding.
You must have known Curly too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dimna from Rochester Bridge, Dimna, I can't think of her second name. She was from Rochester Bridge. She became his wife. But there was a wedding. I remember Padraig telling me that. And everything went grand, and everybody had too much to drink, and it ended up in a massive big melee. You didn't know anything about that wedding.
That one, no, I must have missed out. I was in Farrell. I didn't miss too many of them, but I must have missed out. Yeah.
That was in Canada, yeah.
Yeah.
So
But there was great old atmosphere around Whitehorse that time. It was Kelly was another man. That's one of the guys. And the boys, we used to go drinking. Myself and Padraig, we go drinking, but the other guys would be gambling at the back of the old Capitol Hotel, like in the Whitehorse Inn, like, and there'd be a bunch of Chinamen. They were great gamblers, the Chinamen. But myself and Padraig, we go in for the drink. We didn't bother playing poker. They were all the rest of them were. They were playing poker. This is going on all night, and there's one guy on sentry watching the cops, like the RCMP. You know, he was having a drink. Well, to keep drink to him too, but the next thing he'd pass out, like, so we'd have to change the guards, like, you know, the changing of the guards, like.
My God. And you didn't know Matty Smith from Matt Boy?
Matty Smith. How big a guy was he?
Big man.
Big,
Massive big Matty
to...
Smith.
Yeah.
He was a friend of Porrick's as well, and he was my uncle.
I met him now somewhere too. Big man, yeah.
Yeah.
So any funny bits or any bits you can remember about Padraig, because he was a character, as we all know.
Oh God.
Yeah.
But you talk about all the places he lives, he has worked at, lived.
He worked widespread,
everything.
like he worked.
But the other thing is the conditions you worked in.
Oh yeah, the conditions.
You know, like it's okay and it's nice reminiscent, but you work hard, but the conditions, like the winter conditions, the cold, the ice,
How you had to
you know
dress
what I
going to
mean,
work.
how you dealt with everything.
Well, you see, as Padraig used to say, like say they were working in, doing them drifts, like the tunnels, the exploration, ventilation drifts and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You see,
Minus what?
that's why they see, like we try to get some of them guys out of that, like we try to get them incorporated into the work we were doing, like, in the mines and that, like,
Yeah.
the mining, construction, Cypress Anvil, all them.
Why would you? Because of the
We
conditions.
figured it'd be a lot easier life because that was tough. That was the toughest life you could.
Yeah.
What was the temperatures like at the time?
Well, you see, the thing about them, they're down underground,
They were
1,000
underground.
feet underground sometimes, and the temperature the same all year round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we were in worse temperatures, but they were more dangerous.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Grand Duke tunnels. He worked on the Grand Duke tunnels. They were the longest tunnels in the world, actually.
And they were
And-
where?
And where are they?
They're on the Alaska border there, eh?
Oh.
And Porrick worked in those.
He did too, yeah.
And that was
But
under air pressure.
I went in, I drove up in British Columbia, Molybdenum, eh? And I flew over the mountains right into Grand Duke, went into Hyder, Alaska. That's where we drank the snake bite, that real tough, like moonshine, only worse. And
And then they lit you on fire.
no, I told the old equipment manager, because I am not going in on that train. You see, the train went right through the mountains. And they drove a lot of that with the jailbirds, convicts. There were a lot of convicts in there, and the Mounties would come in and they'd have to sign that big ledger every week or whatever it was. And I told them, said, there's too many guys coming out on the stretcher every day coming out of that damn place. So I told the old master mechanic, I'm not going in to that hole in the ground. I'll work in the surface shop only. So I'm working on them Jarvis Clark and Wagner scoop trams, the old scoop trams,
The low, little low.
and the drills, the jumbo drills. So the next thing, he comes to me one day, says them hard rock guys are in there on the face, and the big jumbo drill is down, and the other one, we're waiting for parts for it, like one of the faces, like. Says he, and there's a bunch of hay hands in there. They're not mechanics at all, like. Says he, you got to get in the next train going in. Says, I partner, I told you, when I hired on, I wasn't going on that hole in the ground. There's too many guys coming out in the stretchers. So he got right mad, and I loaded my toolboxes and I headed for Hyder, Alaska. So I got drunk there for about 3 or 4 days, and we got fogged in. That's why I was there for 3 or 4 days. Stayed in that old tumble down saloon there.
Was Padraig around?
Padraig was working away, like, but he was used to all that underground stuff, like, and then he was always safe, like, with his crew that he worked with, like.
So you're saying that Porrick all that while was working in there where those convicts were. All
Exactly.
Of that.
Oh
He
yeah.
was working in there in those extremely tough conditions that you
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
that you wouldn't even dream of going into.
Well, I wouldn't go in there. There's no way. There were too many guys like on the stretchers.
Coming out on stretchers, and Porrick was
He'd
working.
go in there like, but he had, his track record was, you know,
He had a huge track
anywhere
record.
he worked, like, you know what I mean, eh? In any of them hard rock miners, like any of them guys, like they'd mention his name. Well, he got hired right away. Like he didn't have to.
Porrick.
Yeah, he didn't have to get interviewed or nothing. Like his name was, you know.
He was famous. His
His name was, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, his name was famous.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
you know. But he was very modest. He never, He never blew his horn, like, you know what I mean, eh?
That is
Yeah.
extraordinary. He never talked very much about it, but he did tell me a story one time of being underground, and a bucket came down from the surface, and they were about a mile underground, and it killed the man next to him. Did he ever tell you that story?
No.
Killed
no.
the man next to him, and you know he pulled on the chain or whatever way he had of communicating with the surface,
Yeah.
and they sent down another bucket. And this man was huge; he was about 20 stone weight, and he said he got such a massive adrenaline rush, literally lifted up the other man, dead weight, as if he was a baby, and put him in the bucket.
In the bucket.
Hopped in beside him, pulled up the thing, and back up to the surface.
Yeah, on the cage, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that
Yeah.
was a stretcher.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember one of his party pieces was, I used to work on a plank, and if I fell, I'd fall a mile, and everybody would be imagined that he was up in the sky. You know, you couldn't be. You couldn't be. Yeah, you just couldn't be. No, that's impossible. That's a lie. You're telling a story. You know, and then he'd explain, yeah, I was underground, and you know, he said there was a drop of about a mile underneath me. Would that be true?
Oh yeah, oh definitely, yeah. Kirkland Lake is 4 miles underground. The deepest gold mines in the world actually was Kirkland Lake.
4 miles
4
underground.
miles straight down.
4 miles straight down.
Yeah.
Of a drop.
That's nearly
Yeah.
from here to Rathone.
Yeah,
Of a
you know
drop.
what I mean? Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
gold mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is extraordinary.
Yeah, it is,
It's
yeah.
hard to imagine it.
You see, they wanted to move all the garbage from Toronto and pump it down. You see,
Yeah.
the mine is shut now. Do you remember we were in
Yeah.
Kirkland Lake that time, eh?
The community was in uproar. They wanted
And the
to move
community
the
said there's no
garbage.
garbage coming in. They could have put in like millions of tons, like, because there's all the
Well,
jets
Toronto
going
didn't
every
know
which
where
way.
to dump the garbage
Yeah,
anymore,
you're
you know.
So they were
Yeah.
going to use that the empty mine as
The
a
empty
mine.
mine,
and
yeah.
is the gold all mined out now?
It is out of that area. They started at Hemelo. You got Lac Minerals, Tech, Corona, and Aranda, the 3 big gold mining giants. Like, and Barrett, is it Barrett Gold or
Yeah,
Barrett? Is it or Barrett?
Barrett.
Something like that. They were Australian gold mining company. I think Barrett
Yeah,
Gold.
yeah.
Would
There
you
is-
see much gold? You know, would you see it, or is it?
You only see the ore. wouldn't
The
you?
Yeah.
yeah. It's just ore.
I worked at Hemelo, you know, in
I
the
used to
gold
say
mine.
to him when he was fixing the machines, why the hell don't you
Bring
bring a
some
little
gold?
bit of gold home?
But
Helen,
it's-
did you know Porrick
They've never got
in
to see-
Canada?
No.
No, you didn't know
No,
Porrick
I
in
didn't
Canada.
meet Porrick till the latter years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I used to drive them home, like we used to get, it would be in Edgertown or the Mostrom or Johnny Lynch, or there was another place across before,
Tony Green.
Tony Green's, that was
great
his,
aunt it is.
that was his
Yeah.
office, Tony Green's,
It's
like,
now Sonny Keenan's.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Porrick is now back in Ireland from Canada,
Mm.
and he's working in Navan and other places. So
That's
you'd
right, he done a good term in Navan.
yeah. So you'd meet up with him when you'd come home,
He knew,
Tara.
oh yeah,
Is it Tara,
oh yeah.
right?
and would you come down specially to Edgerstown to meet him?
Well, I used to be in and out to Edgertown, like I was on a,
What was your connection with Edgerstown? Did you have it?
just drinking actually, yeah.
You just came to Edgerstown to drink,
Just
is
to
it?
catch up with everybody.
See,
And
you're
then-
from the street.
And then I
You're
used to
from
bring
the
him the
You're
northern,
from the street, which is
street,
just
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
Oh right, yeah.
and then I used to bring him the Northern Miner, like,
Yeah.
and he used to love
Yeah.
the Northern Miner, right?
What's the Northern Miner?
It's about
It's
all
a
the mining
newspaper
operations in Canada,
in
all over
Canada.
the north,
Okay.
with a
Yeah.
paper. I used to go into, what is that?
We used to go into chapters and they'd
Chapter
always say,
bookstore.
Mother, we got to get the Northern Miner for the Hard Rock Miner.
For the hard rock miner.
Oh right.
And I brought it home from every time I come home. I
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
it for him, like.
And you'd
you
meet up in Edgerstown.
Yeah.
Yeah, only
And
be
you
up
go on
in
a
it.
back-
Only Tony Green's.
I would
Yeah.
go on-
That's where I met him in Tony Green.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And
And
there was a harmonium in Tony Green's that time. We're going back to the early 1980s.
yes,
And there was a harmonium in the corner. I don't know if it's still there.
I wonder was that the harmonium the Porrick had in the sitting room in our house?
Gosh.
It had a slide up thing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's where it came out of.
And I used to play the harmonium and
Right.
we'd be singing and have a bit of a sing song.
Yeah.
That was how I met Porrick.
That's how you
in
met
there,
Porrick,
Tony
yeah.
Green's. Yeah. And I have to say we had great fun.
Great crack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'd always, Porrick never changed with drink. He was always a gentleman.
Always. Yeah.
You know, and some of us would always leave him home, and he
Yeah.
was, you know, no bother. You know, some people get a bit bothersome with drink. Porrick never
He never
did.
was. No, the same with Paddy Burns and that. When
Yeah.
Paddy had
He was
knocked out
always a
them guys.
joy.
You know what I mean? He never, and he'd say, "You goddamn Amadon," like. And they called Paddy the Amadon for a long time. The whole
The
bunch
one
of them.
about the evening we're in that the barman said about the happy hour. Tell her that one.
Oh, what? Who was that young lad there, Mountie guy?
And he was,
He's from Rathone,
Yeah.
wasn't
He wasn't a son of the guard, was he?
No.
Murphy's son, no.
he was in Johnston's place. What was his name? But he said, anyway, we're all having a beer there, and he said, it's the happy hour, lads. And Porrick gets a drink, and a drink for us all anyway. Your man comes around looking for the money. And Porrick says, didn't you say it was the happy hour? And the barman says, yes. He says, the happier you are, the happier we are. And Porrick says, who are you? He says, a soft ash barman to talk to a hard rock miner like me like that.
Oh, that was
Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah, true, right?
What's this that fella's name was?
He was so witty, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, he's come up with it.
You know, he never used bad language. I never
No.
heard him use
No.
bad language, rough language. And
No.
he was
Great
always,
character.
always a gentleman.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
No, there was some great old laugh. I left him home. I'd safely say I left him home probably 25 times easy, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. And what was that like?
We'd have an old drink. We'd always have a little squirt, like an old bottle, and have a sip on it on the way out the road, like.
And would he bring you in then when you get to the...
Well, most of the time I'd want to get home, like, you know.
And did you ever go in?
We didn't bring much. We'd have a drink on the way.
Saturday, never went in.
Well, I never bothered, no.
Oh.
It'd be home time for everyone.
It'd be home time, like this.